This is awesome to be here. First of all, thank you, everybody at Crossroads and Brian for putting this event together. I couldn't imagine getting up talking about business and talking about faith in the same conference. It just, God is great, right? Who could imagine this would happen? So we have 15 minutes. Great. I found out late last night, okay, we're going to put something together. So let's wrap up all this into a short period of time. But first, a little bit of background. So I've been in the venture capital business for about 10 years, managed money with blue chip venture company, about $600 million. We managed in investments. So I've been part of hundreds of startups and hundreds of millions of dollars of capital invested and lost and gained. You get to do both. And learned a lot in that process. And then through that, started Share This, and I'll weave that in a little bit. But in summary, Share This reaches 700 million people a month around the web. And it started with an insight that there's so much information on the web that we can't possibly curate it and understand it all. And when we share links, we're developing new networks, if you will, to help us navigate and curate information. And I wanted to know everything about what people shared across every network, because we use multiple social networks, right? We use Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, email. And so that's what Share This does. Unfortunately, Share This is now headquartered in Palo Alto. And we have offices in LA, Chicago, and New York. But I still live here. Our kids were here. I wasn't going to move. Ultimately, I made a transition from CEO to chairman so that the company could continue to grow, but that I didn't need to move, okay? And so that is the reason why I'm working now with Centrifuge, working with Wendy Lee, who we saw yesterday, on specifically our fund of funds, or what we call syndicate funds. So we are investing in other venture capital firms throughout the country, the best firms we can find, to network them in with Cincinnati entrepreneurs to help them raise money to help their startups grow. And we've got some amazing startups. As a matter of fact, I think this 6 months, this year, is a record. It's historic in Cincinnati history. Wendy mentioned our startups have raised about $45 million and counting just in the last month. And these are companies like, yeah, exactly. And I know some of these CEOs and founders of these companies, by the way, are Christians and are very strong leaders. So they're entrepreneurs on a mission, which I love even better, right? So some of these companies are everything but the house. You've probably seen that or used that or are addicted to it, like my wife is. Listener or Dotloop. If you've seen Dotloop just sold to Zillow. I was on the board of Dotloop for about 3 years. So we've got incredible things going on in Cincinnati, and I think there's a lot more to come. Matter of fact, my vision for Cincinnati is that we create a place where the best and brightest in the world want to come to create and innovate, right? Don't you want that? Wouldn't that be good? Yeah, I agree. So one of the things they learn in all of this is the importance of growth, right? We talked about it. We've talked about it from a biblical perspective, right? Growth's important for our city and for our companies and for us individually, right? God wants us to grow closer to Him. Growth is healthy. If we're not growing, we're dying. And so you really learn that in venture capital because, man, the growth has to be fantastic if you want to generate venture returns. So luckily, the city leaders of Cincinnati created Centrifuge for that purpose, to help drive growth of entrepreneurs and startups in this community. And my vision is that in the next 10 years, some of the biggest companies in Cincinnati are companies that didn't exist 5 years ago, right? So how do we get that done? You're all here. You may be doing that right now, and I don't know that, and I hope you are. So I want to hopefully share some things that are very practical for you to take back and to learn from. I'm sort of a student of this. I agree with John Maxwell and others that have said this in Kalev. I don't believe in retirement. And our friend Todd Henry actually has a great quote in his book from the one and only Neil Peart, drummer for Rush, which is, what is a master but a master student? And I like to think of myself as a master student, always growing personally and trying to learn from each other and from the entrepreneurs I work with. So the question is, if you sum it all up, we need to start with the end in mind, right? Start with the end in mind. That's what it comes down to. Entrepreneurs are very goal-driven. We think about objectives. We set our internal clocks to work against goals and objectives on a daily basis, monthly basis, annual basis, right? So what's the end in mind? What's your vision? What are you trying to create? And is it big enough, right? Is it a big goal that others want to be part of? I wrestled with this a little bit in terms of the life-work balance. I know we get a lot of speakers that come up and talk on stages about life-work balance, and usually they're a failure, right? They talk about the huge success they've created, and then they tell the story about how they didn't spend any time with their family. And I say, why are they speaking? Show me somebody who's actually spent time and invested in their family and created success. My wife reminded me of this at one point when I was traveling a lot, and it was my 40th birthday, and she kept asking, what is success? Now, I'm driven by solving problems, so that was driving me more than making money. But it was a great reminder, and she created for me this book. She got a hold of my contacts from my admin and sent out emails to all my friends and family and said, write a note about what Tim has meant to you. And she got flooded with hundreds of letters and put it all in a notebook for me. And I remember reading that. I still get choked up. And it was like, if you can imagine going to your funeral and seeing people come to your funeral, that's what it felt like, right? And I wish everybody could feel that at some point, right? Because most of us won't. We won't be able to hear that until after we pass away. So that was a great reminder for me, and given my faith and belief in Jesus as my Savior, the rest of this is easy, right? I've got context for this, and we've all heard great inspiring stories about that today. But you need a vision that's worth fighting for. And the question is, do you have that vision, right? So when I say we need to start with the end in mind, what does that mean to you? When you start with the end in mind, what's that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow? Maybe you could relate to this video.
Whoa, that's a full rainbow. All the way. Double rainbow. Oh my God. It's a double rainbow all the way. Whoa, that's so intense. Whoa, man. Wow. Whoa. 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 Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Woo. Oh wow. Woo. Yeah. Oh my, oh my, oh my God, look at that. It's starting to even look like a triple rainbow. Oh my God, it's full on. Double rainbow all the way across the sky. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh God. What does this mean? Oh. Oh my.
What does it mean? What does it mean? What's your pot of gold at the end of the rainbow? What does success mean to you? Right? We wouldn't go on a road trip without understanding what our destination was, right? I do sometimes when I want to go out and drive my car fast, but that's another story. So we think about what that destination is, and we plan for it, right? So building a business is a lot like taking a road trip. And so let's use that analogy here and start with, what does it mean to say start with the end in mind? Well, I think think of this, is evaluation, I got to remember, navigation, and dedication. All right, I'm going to walk through each of those real quickly, all right? And I love using the acronyms. Matter of fact, I don't know if you've played this game, but when our kids were younger and we'd go on road trips, it was kind of like Sesame Street, where, this trip is brought to you by the letter E, right? So the whole trip, we try to come up with all the words that begin with the letter E. Now, this was before phones and handheld tablets, so the kids couldn't cheat. And at the beginning of the trip, obviously, they'd come up with a lot of letters with the word E in it, like end or envelope. And then it would be quiet for a couple days, and then maybe there'd be a spurt of creativity and a bunch of other words would show up. And I remember one time we were driving through Colorado, it was late at night, everybody's asleep, and all of a sudden a little one in the background goes, ecstatic! Yes, Joe, that's a word. So let's start with E, evaluation. What do I mean by that? So we've got the big vision. We know what the goal is, right? How do we evaluate it? And I want a little bit of your help on each of these words, because I think there are a lot of other words that begin with the letter E that help in this stage of evaluation of the idea. And if you come up with any, I want you to just yell them out. Just yell them out. What is that? Entrepreneur. Okay, good. Another one might be experiment, right? The point of the evaluation stage is to listen. And this is something I haven't heard yet in the last couple of days. Entrepreneurs, good ones, are very good listeners. Unfortunately, we see them up front talking a lot. But the truth is, they spend a lot of time listening and talking to customers and talking to employees and figuring out how to validate their idea or even discredit it, right? If you have a big idea, it should be bulletproof, right? So invite the bullets. Like, ask people to beat you up. Look for input. tell them to give you all the reasons why it's not going to work, and then you'll be prepared. It's all about listening, which is also a very biblical concept, right? Listen to what God's telling you. What is God doing in his kingdom, and what role is it that he wants for you? So let's bring up a couple of the passages that I wanted to share. I recently went through, if you've read the book Experiencing God by Henry Blackaby, excellent book, highly recommend it. And what it makes clear here that is different than what the world teaches you is it's all about your skills, right? And your Myers-Briggs and Strengths Finders and everything else. It's not about that. If God wants it to get done, he will give you what you need to accomplish his purpose, right? Right? That is the definition of faith. That's the definition of faith. If it's all relying on my skills, then why do I need God, right? It's all on me. If it's God and you're leaving yourself open to his will and purpose, he will provide for you. Okay, so I'm a big believer in that, and I think that entails listening. Now, we're all very good listeners, but unfortunately, we tend to forget about it sometimes. So we're going to do a little experiment, right? Now, it was just after lunch. So I want everybody to stand up real quick. All right, we're going to see how well each of you listen. So I'm going to ask you, when I say 1, 2, 3, I want everybody to clap just randomly. And then I'm going to give you a cue and ask you to all clap at the same time. All righty? 1, 2, 3. Okay, at the same time. All right. You did it. Excellent. All right, thank you. You can sit down. You never know if that's going to work. What's amazing about that is I didn't have to give you a time. I didn't have to give you a metronome. I didn't have to tell you what beat I was looking for. You heard each other. You understood what the vision was. The vision was we want to all be clapping at the same time, and you figured it out, and it only took you maybe 2 seconds to do it, right? That's because we're really good at listening, right? And we got to remember that we're good at listening. We need to understand the unmet needs of our customers, right? Bob Johansen has a book called Leaders Make the Future, and he goes through 10 concepts you need to know as a leader. And one of those is leaders find clarity through chaos. And in today's environment, in a very complex marketplace, it's very hard to do. People are confused. There's a lot of noise out there. Your job, especially if you want to build a company with high growth potential, is to get out of the noise and create clarity through chaos for your customers and for your employees. All right, any other E's? Anybody can think of any other E's? And we're going to move on to the end. Excellent. Excellent is excellent. And if the idea is excellent after you've evaluated it, move on to step 2, which is navigation. So navigation is all about building the roadmap. So, okay, now you have the vision, you've evaluated it. How do you navigate through it? If you're taking a road trip, how many times do you have to stop to go to the bathroom, to get gas, to sleep, right? You have a plan. That's your business plan. And what do you do with the business plan? Throw it out the window as soon as you start driving, right? Because things change. Weather comes up. Roads are closed, right? All of a sudden, I got to go to the bathroom about an hour earlier than I told you I had to, go to the bathroom. So navigation's all about measuring where you are and keeping track of it and adjusting as you go. And any entrepreneur will tell you, whatever they do, that's what they're constantly doing. They're constantly adjusting, right? But the only way you can do that is by measuring. So numbers, metrics, numerate, notate, right? Track the metrics. Make some assumptions about how long it's going to take to get to the next stop, and then write it down. How much gas was it, et cetera. That's equivalent to fundraising. Each milestone you want to achieve, I need $1 million for this milestone, $10 million for the next. You need to keep track of the numbers and be very analytical about it at this stage, right? When we think about that, Mark Andreessen, famous venture capitalist from Andreessen Horowitz, talks about the idea maze that he loves entrepreneurs to take them through. So finally, I want to move on to dedication. Dedication is once you've got your navigation in place, now's the time to dedicate to pursuing it and to persist, right? I don't know about you, but most road trips we ever take, we don't give up. We make it there, right? We get there, and we adjust if we have to, but we get there and we dedicate the right resources, we dedicate the right budget, make sure you got the gas money, make sure you got enough food, etc. But dedicate yourself to the mission and the path that you're on. So I've been married for 25 years, right? So this could apply to marriage as well, right? Evaluation stage, we were dating. Then was the navigation stage after we got married, where some things didn't always work out the way we thought they would, but we had to navigate. But finally, we were dedicated. We were dedicated to each other. We were both dedicated to God. No matter what happened, we knew we weren't going to go off course. It doesn't matter what comes at us. We're not going off course. We're dedicated to each other, and that's what pulls us through it. In the same way, Centrifuge leaders here in Cincinnati have dedicated to this idea of building this healthy, robust entrepreneur community and have dedicated not only a syndicate fund, which is $57 million, and we're likely to raise another fund of $75 million or more in the next year or two, as well as a $16 million renovation for a building downtown. So if you're planning a business, if you think you're going to get venture funded, I encourage you to come sign up or learn more about Centrifuge, see how we can help. There's 3 things we can do to help you. Help with talent and education, help with customers, because we have a lot of those in town, and then third, help with funding. All right, so I hope that helps. And start with the end in mind. Evaluate, navigate, and dedicate. Thanks.